Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to really get into a case that just gripped everyone for years. It seemed like this awful true crime story, but then, well, it turned out to be this incredibly complex, frankly, kind of shocking, made-up situation. We're talking about Sherri Papini.
That's right, the so-called supermom from Redding, California.
Exactly. She vanished while jogging back on November 2nd, 2016. 3 weeks, just gone. And then when she reappeared, everything shifted. It wasn't just relief. It became this really strange investigation.
Yeah, and our goal here is to sort of unpack all the sources we have, the initial media storm, the science, specifically the forensic evidence that really blew her story apart, and then, of course, the legal mess that followed. We want to understand how this really elaborate deception was finally figured out.
And the hook, the thing that made everyone pay attention right from the start.
Her reappearance, found 150 miles south of her home on Thanksgiving Day, no less. Battered, in restraints, but alive.
That image, that description, that's what sent this story absolutely everywhere. Her husband, Keith, had found her phone and earbuds near their home, maybe a mile away.
Yeah, about a mile. So it looked like a classic abduction scenario right off the bat. But the story she told when she came back, it was intense, clearly designed to shock.
And incredibly specific, too.
Calculatedly so, yes. And her claims were really specific and, frankly, damaging. She immediately said 2 Hispanic women held her captive, and she described them as, always hiding their faces, wearing masks, keeping her head covered.
So not just a random description.
No, not at all. It pointed fingers in a very specific direction, injecting this racially charged element right into a federal kidnapping case.
And the physical state she was in. The broken nose, her hair chopped off, the extreme weight loss. What was down to like 87 pounds?
Yeah, incredibly low weight. But the detail that really locked in the media frenzy, the one everyone remembers, was the branding.
Right, the word Exodus burned onto her shoulder.
That brand, that was the thing. It turned it from a disturbing case into this massive multi-state investigation. Because she gave such detailed testimony, you had the Shasta County Sheriff, the FBI, pouring huge resources into it.
Search warrants in different states. I remember reading Michigan was one.
That's right. Michigan was involved.
Yeah.
For years, law enforcement was genuinely searching for a dark SUV, 2 armed Hispanic women, all based on her word.
The cost alone must have been enormous.
Yeah.
And all that effort just based on her claims. But even while the public was, rallying behind her, you could see in some reports that investigators, the experts, were starting to have doubts pretty early on.
Absolutely. The details she gave, they felt, well, a bit too much like a movie script sometimes. That created some internal skepticism. But, skepticism isn't proof.
You need evidence.
You need hard evidence. And eventually that evidence came from the DNA.
Ah, okay. So the turning point.
Definitely the turning point. They collected physical evidence right after she reappeared, found DNA, both male and female, on her clothes, on her body, that wasn't hers and wasn't her husband's.
To unknown third parties.
Right. They ran it through CODIS. That's the big national DNA database for crime investigations, and nothing. No matches initially.
Okay, so the trail went cold there for a bit.
For years, actually. That DNA just sat in the system. But then, forensics tech keeps advancing, databases get updated, and in March 2022, bam, the male DNA profile gets a hit.
And who was it?
Her ex-boyfriend, James Reyes.
Wow. Okay. So how did that match finally happen after all that time?
It's probably a mix of things. Maybe Reyes had some minor run-in with the law later on, got his DNA collected for something unrelated, or maybe they just reran older samples with newer tech against updated databases. The key thing is, once they had that match, Reyes became central.
So his story completely contradicted hers, right?
Completely. Shattered it. He told investigators Papini had voluntarily stayed with him at his place in Southern California for the entire 3 weeks she was supposedly missing.
Voluntarily.
The whole time.
The whole time. It wasn't a kidnapping.
Yeah.
It was her staging her own disappearance with his help.
So if she was with him willingly, where did all the documented history come in? You mentioned earlier reports.
Right. Once they knew Reyes was involved voluntarily, they dug deeper into her past, and that's when the context became crucial. Sources show she actually had a documented history of self-harm and making false reports about abuse.
Really? Going back how far?
There was a report from 2003 filed by her own mother, actually, with the Shasta County Sheriff's Office. It suggested this wasn't a one-off thing. There was potentially a pattern of fabrication there.
Oh, that adds a whole different dimension. But it still leaves the question of the injuries. If she was with Reyes willingly, how did she end up looking so brutalized? The bruises, the chain marks, the brand, those seemed very real. And that's really the core of how deep this hoax went. Papini's explanation later on was that Reyes inflicted those injuries against her will.
But Reyes denied that.
He did. And crucially, he passed a polygraph test administered by law enforcement on this point. His story was that Papini was there voluntarily, and she was the one who either hurt herself or asked him to help inflict some of the injuries.
Including the branding.
Including the branding. He claimed she asked him to do it.
That's a massive difference in stories. How did investigators figure out who was telling the truth there?
Forensics again. Medical examiners and FBI criminal analysts, they did a really detailed review of all the injuries.
And what did they find?
Their conclusion was pretty definitive. The wounds, the pattern of bruising, even things she claimed were bite marks.
Yeah.
They determined those were actually rashes, not bite marks at all. And the overall pattern of injuries, the cuts, the bruises, they looked consistent with injuries that were either self-inflicted or inflicted in a controlled way. Not the kind of random severe trauma you'd expect from weeks of violent captivity.
So deliberate injuries designed to fit the narrative.
Exactly. That forensic analysis basically confirmed Reyes' side of the story about the injuries being staged.
Okay. That must have been it then. Arrest followed soon after.
Pretty quickly, March 3rd, 2022. She was arrested, faced federal charges. Lying to federal agents was one charge, but the really big one was mail fraud.
Mail fraud. How does that connect to a fake kidnapping?
The money. It always comes back to the money, doesn't it? She used the U.S. mail to send false applications and documents to the California Victim Compensation Board.
Ah, because she was claiming to be a victim of a violent crime.
Precisely. And based on that lie, she got over $30,000 from the state's victim fund between 2017 and 2021. Using the mail to commit that fraud is a federal offense.
I see. So that explains the federal charges. And she eventually pleaded guilty.
She did. Took a plea deal. Pleaded guilty to 1 count of mail fraud and 1 count of making false statements. They dropped a lot of other mail fraud counts as part of that deal, something like 33 others.
And the sentence.
18 months in federal prison, plus 3 years of supervised release afterward. And importantly, a huge restitution order.
How much did she have to pay back?
$309,902. That wasn't just the $30,000 plus she got from the victim fund. It was meant to cover the massive costs of the investigation across multiple states that her hoax caused. Police time, FBI resources, all of it.
Wow. And she served her time.
She did. Was released to a halfway house in August 2023.
And the personal cost? Her family, her husband.
Yeah, that fallout was immediate. Keith Papini separated from her the very day she was arrested, filed for divorce and sole custody of their kids right after she pleaded guilty in April 2022.
Just devastating on a personal level.
Even with the conviction, the story just keeps going, doesn't it? The media narrative completely flipped, of course.
Oh, absolutely. It went from those sympathetic Supermom missing headlines in places like People magazine to endless true crime shows, documentaries, podcasts, all dissecting the hoax.
There have been movies, right? Yep. Lifetime did hoax. The Kidnapping of Sherri Papini in 2023. Hulu had that limited series, Perfect Wife, in 2024. There's even another one slated for 2025, Sherri Papini, Caught in the Lie.
And that one apparently has her first interview since the conviction.
That's the hook for it, yeah. Reports say she's trying to question some of the FBI's conclusions, particularly about the injuries. Still trying to control the narrative, it seems.
It's even shown up in music, hasn't it?
Yeah, Eminem referenced it in his song Houdini in 2024. Just dropped her name in there as shorthand for, pulling a vanishing act, a deception. It's really permeated pop culture.
And for her, personally, the attention hasn't faded.
Not at all. She mentioned in a recent interview, apparently, that finding a job is incredibly difficult because the case got so much global attention. Everyone knows the story.
So stepping back from all the details, what's the big takeaway here? I mean, the way she manipulated public sympathy, used those really specific charged details like the racial element, the brand.
It really shows how you can weaponize a narrative, right? Force law enforcement down a certain path. But it's also, I think, a powerful example of how solid forensic science, that DNA match, the careful medical analysis of the injuries, can ultimately cut through even a very elaborate lie.
And the legal side shows the serious consequences for deceiving law enforcement and defrauding systems set up to help actual victims.
Definitely. The restitution order alone sends a strong message about the cost of these kinds of actions. And think about the level of commitment involved. The planning, the willingness to endure or inflict serious physical harm to make the lie believable, it's quite something.
So when you look at the whole picture, this huge contrast between the initial story, this terrifying racially motivated abduction, and the cold, calculated reality the investigation uncovered. What does it tell us about how we consume information today, especially stories that play on our fears?
That's a great question. It's a lesson in skepticism, maybe, and how disinformation can spread like wildfire. But then you also have the fact that even after the conviction, with all the evidence laid out, she's still trying to push back on parts of it. Ray has passed a polygraph. The forensics are clear yet.
Right, which leads to that final thought, doesn't it?
Mm.
When you have a case this sensational, with deep deception and this prior history of false reports, does the public ever really fully move on from the initial shock? Or does the doubt, the sheer weirdness of it all, mean the story, in a way, never actually ends, even after the courts have decided?
Hmm. That's the lingering question, isn't it? Does the legal conclusion ever truly silence the sensationalism?